In this video for Computer Science 9618 A-Level, we take a look at a requested question walkthrough that involves object-oriented programming with text files. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at what we're starting with. Now, on the test, how do you know if you have to use a text file? So here, you're reading through it, you're going to open up your evidence document where you're going to paste all your code, and then right here, you'll notice it says a source file is used to answer question 2E. The file is called pictures.txt. Now, when you start your paper 4 exam, you should be given a flash drive or a way to access these source files. And I'll show you where they go, because when they're given to you, you have to put them in the right part of your solution folder so you can actually access them. Let's go ahead and take a look at the question, start walking through, and we'll get to all this at the end so I can show you where it goes. So, a program written using object-oriented programming stores pictures as objects. The program stores the dimensions of the picture, width and height, the color of the frame, and a description of the flower showing what it is. This is just like every other object-oriented programming question. We have the name of the class, we have the attributes, we have our constructor, which in VB is public subnew. In Java, it's whatever the name of the class is, which in this case is picture, and that's never going to change. There's never an exception to that rule. Here you can see that all 4 values are taken as parameters. That is the description, width, height, frame color. We have 4 get methods here, which return one of these properties or attributes, and then we have a set method. So the constructor takes the picture description, all the attributes as parameters, write the program code to declare the class picture and its constructor. Do not write any other methods. When we look at part B, it says the 4 get methods return the associated attribute, get description, write the 4 get methods. So we're going to handle A and B right now. So let's swing over to Visual Studio and implement these. All right, we're over in Visual Studio. Now I know this problem is going to deal with a text file. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do that system.io. I'm going to go ahead and import that. That way I can use the text file. Now when we hover over it, it says that this import statement is unnecessary. When we start using the text file later on, that will be necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and import it so we don't have to deal with it later. So we're going to do public class just like we've done for our other questions. We call this class picture. Now it has some attributes. The first one is description. So that's going to be a string. They also told us that we have width. That's going to be an integer. They also told us that we have height. That is an integer as well. And then we have frame color. So I'm going to do mine frame color. That's going to be a string. So that will give me the attributes. So we're still declaring the class here. We called it picture because that's what they wanted us to use. Now it's time to make the constructor. In VB, the constructor is always going to be public subnew. There's no exception to that rule. Now, how do we know if something goes inside the parentheses? So in the question, it tells us that it takes 4 parameters, and those parameters assign values to these properties or the attributes of each object. So let's go ahead and do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do by val. Now I'm going to do D as string. That's for my description. I'm going to do W as an integer. That's for the width. I'm going to do H as integer. That's for the height. And the last one I need, I'm going to use F as string, and that's going to be for my frame color. So all I need to do is description equals D. I'm going to do my width equals W. I'm going to do my height equals H. And I'm going to do my frame color equals F. So that sets that up. Now we also talked about we need 4 get methods. So this all right here is part A. So it takes just literally a couple minutes to set up, and you can move right on to the next part of the question. Because remember, you only have 2.5 hours for paper 4. That sounds like a long time, but it's really not. So let's keep going. So public function, because I am returning a value, get description, no parameters, and I return the data type, which is a string, and I return the description. So I have one for each of the attributes here. So we're just going to keep making them. So public function, I need to get width, no parameter. That's going to return an integer, and I return width. I do the same thing again for length or height. I guess it's, yep, it's height. When I have the right ones here, and then I return the height. And the last one I need is a get method for the frame color. So one more get method, get frame color, no parameter. That's going to return a string, and I return the frame color. Remember, your get methods 99.9% of the time are not going to accept a parameter. How do you know if it takes a parameter? In the instructions, it will tell you. Let's swing over back to the question. Let's take a look at the next part of the question and keep getting those points. So part C and D. C, the method setDescription takes a new description as a parameter. So here we know it takes a parameter because they told us, and writes this value to the appropriate attribute. Write the method setDescription. Now set methods always go inside of our class. And then down here, part D, write program code to declare an array of type picture with 100 elements. That goes into our main program, which is submain. So let's swing over to Visual Basic and code this out. All right, the first thing we're going to handle is that setDescription method. So I'm going to do public sub, because it's a set method. It's not returning anything. I'm going to set, and I'm going to spell it correctly, setDescription. It does take a parameter, so I'm going to do by val d as string, because that's the parameter it takes. And then I'm simply going to do description equals d. Just like that, we're done. Now, they want us to create an array of picture objects. So I'm going to call mine pictures. They want 100 of them. Now, if I do new picture, it's going to give me an error. When you have an array of objects and you're creating them, you have to omit the keyword new. So you simply do it as picture. Now, when we create an object later, we're going to reference the index of the array and then use the public subnew. We're going to call that constructor. So we'll see that in just a little bit. In the meantime, let's swing back over to the question and take a look at the next part. All right, so part E, the text file pictures.txt stores the data for the pictures in the order, description, width, height, color. So those attributes. For example, for the first picture in the text file, flowers is the description, 45 is the width, 50 is the height, black is the frame color. Now, it's very important we remember this order because we're going to need to read from the file 4 lines. And every 4 lines that we read, it's going to be in this order. That's very important to know. The data read into the program from the text file is stored in an array of type picture. The main program and the function will need to access the array data. The function read data. So we open the picture txt file, not a problem. Read data from the file, not a problem. Create a new object of type picture for each picture. We can do that, not a problem. Writes each object to the array. We can do that too. Raise an exception if the file cannot be found. So that's error handling, a try-catch statement. And then counts and returns the number of pictures in the array. Write program code for the function read data. Now, it doesn't tell us that it takes any parameters. However, there are a couple parameters that we're going to need to put in here so we can access everything that we need. So let's swing over and break this code down piece by piece and talk about why we need the parameters and what it's doing. Okay, so let's walk through this function. So the function is called read data, and it returns an integer. So that will get me started. Now, what may not be very obvious in this question, because it doesn't directly state it, is that you're going to have to take this array of pictures as a parameter. You're going to have to take that because we're going to need to access the index of the very first one, then the second one, and the third one, then the fourth, all the way to 100 each time a picture is created. We also have to keep track of what index we're currently at. If I do dim pick number for the index as an integer, as soon as I leave this function and go back to submain, pick number is going to be removed. It's not going to stay as part of the program. When I come back to read data, it's going to reinitialize pick number as a variable, and it's going to reset back to 0. But if I've created 5 objects, I don't want to start at index 0. If I have 5 objects created and I'm creating my 6th object, I want to start at index 6. So I'm not going to be able to have this as a variable. I'm going to need a parameter. Now, anytime you pass an array, it's going to be by ref. If I type in by val, VB will do by ref for me, but I don't want to confuse my Cambridge examiner. I want to show them that I know how to program and what we're doing. So we're going to do by ref. I'm going to do pictures, and that's going to be as picture. That's the data type. The other thing I'm going to need is I'm going to need pick number, and that's going to be an integer. And what that's going to do is hold the current picture number I'm at. Now, anytime you pass an array down to a function, a sub, whatever it is, and you always want to do the array as by ref. You want to show that it's an array, and you want to put those parentheses. The next thing we need to do is we need to create temporary variables that we can use to hold data from the file. So I'm going to do temp description because I only need it for a short amount of time. I'm going to be overwriting it numerous times. The next one I need is width. That's going to be an integer. I'm going to do height as integer, and I'm going to do frame color as string. That's because when I read the file, I want to temporarily store those so I can create my objects. The last thing I need before we get started is I need file handle as a stream reader. And this is why I did that import .system.io is so I could use that stream reader. When we have a text file we're working with, we want to show Cambridge that we can do exception handling, which is a fancy way of saying, hey, we're going to do a try-catch statement. We're going to try all the code that we have in here. If it doesn't work, we're going to catch the exception, which we've called X, and we're going to let them know, hey, the file's not found. We can do that right now. So we can do file not found. There we go. So what's all the code that we're going to try? Well, the first thing I want to do is I need to open up that file. So I'm going to do file handle equals new system.io.stream reader. And then I'm going to put the name of my file. Now, the name of the file they give us to work with is pictures.txt. So I definitely want to put that in there. And I'll show you at the end where that file goes, because when you take paper 4 and you have a file that you have to work with, you're going to need to either write to it or read from it. So you got to be able to actually access that file. So I'll show you how to do that at the end, where it goes. So we're going to do until file handle dot end of stream. I want to read all the way through this file. I'm going to load temp description by reading the line. Now, when I look at that question, it says the descriptions first, followed by the width, the height, and the frame color. So I need to make sure I do it in that order. When I do file handle dot read line, sure, it's going into temp width, but the computer doesn't know that I'm trying to store the width. It's just saying, hey, read the line, put it in this variable. So it's very important we recognize the order that it's in. And then I'm going to do my frame color, and that's going to be file handle dot read line. So I need to read 4 lines at a time, 1 line for each attribute or property. Now that I've recorded those, I can create my object. So I'm going to do pictures, which is the name of the array, pick number, which is the index, and we'll need to update that. And when we call this function, we'll set a value. So I want that to be new picture. Now you may be saying, uh-oh, we have a red line. Don't forget, our constructor inside our picture class accepts 4 parameters. Well, what are the 4 parameters? What I just read right from the file. So that's going to be temp description, followed by temp width, and I got to put it in the same order that my constructor is in. Temp height, and then temp frame color. There we go. So that will do that. Now, once I use that index, I want to be able to use the next index. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do pick number plus equals 1, which is the same thing as pick number equals pick number plus 1. That is my loop. I am reading from the pictures text file, and I'm storing all that data into my temporary variables, and then I'm creating my object. I'm incrementing pick number to go to the next index because I don't want to overwrite the object I just created. So it's very important we do that. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to return pick number because it returns the number of pictures. So let's swing back to the question, and let's take a look at the next part and get ready to wrap up this question. And for part F, the main program calls the function read data, right? The main program. So we're going to go into our submain and we're going to call read data that we just created, as well as create a variable that holds the current index of the picture array that we're at. So let's swing over to VB and call what we just wrote, that function read data. All right, so we're going to call read data. The first thing I need to do, because I'm going to handle the index as a parameter by ref, which fully updates it, I'm going to create that, that variable. So I'm going to call mine pick index so I know where I am at. Now, the very first thing I want to do is I want to set it to 1. The reason I'm setting it to 1 is because I'm not starting at index 0. I'm starting at index 1, because if I'm looking for picture 1, that should be in index 1. For me as a programmer, it's a lot easier to handle that. Because I'm skipping over index 0 and starting at index 1, I need to set my index equal to 1. The next thing I need to do is I need to call read data. Now it does return an integer. So I know that's the number of pictures. Well, why do I need to know the number of pictures? So I know what index I'm at. So my pick index, after I create it, and it's 1 because I'm doing it by ref, it's going to update it. So pick index is going to be read data. I'm going to pass down my pictures array and pass down pick index. So if you get rid of these parentheses, because I told you if you don't have the parentheses, it's going to generate an error. And right here, you'll see there is an error. When you do something by ref, you're saying, okay, I'm calling my parameter pictures of the picture data type. When you're passing down the array, you want to put the parentheses. So that's very important. All right, let's swing back and take a look at the next part of the question. All right, in the last two parts of the question G, the main program needs to ask the user to input their requirements for a picture. The user will enter the color of the frame, the width, and the height of the picture. The program will then search the array of pictures, output the picture description, the width, the height of any picture that meets the user's requirements. The program should allow the user to input the color in any case. So camel case, all lowercase, or all uppercase, still output the correct results. So we'll do that, no problem. Then they want us to test the program by inputting the following search criteria. We want to look for a color frame that's black, that's 100 by 100, and then a silver frame that is 25 by 25. Now we're going to need to handle these separately. We're going to have to run our program twice and show those two outputs, which is why it's 2 points and not 1. So let's swing over back to VB. Let's get those requirements, and then we'll iterate through the array looking for something that meets the requirements. So let's code that out now. So to handle these questions, we're going to need some variables. The first one we're going to need is frame color. That's a string. The next one I need is max height, or I think it's width was first they gave us. And then equals integer. Here we go. As integer, there we go. And then max height as integer as well. Because we're going to ask them to enter the frame color, the max width, and the max height. And we're looking for a picture from the file that we've stored into the array that meets those requirements. So I'm going to ask them to enter the frame color. So they're going to enter that. So I'm going to do frame color equals console.readline. Now what I need to do, it told me to handle camel case, all uppercase, or all lowercase. You don't need different if statements for this. I'm deciding to take my user's answer, whatever it may be, and make it all lowercase. So I'm going to do frame color equals frame color dot to lower, which is a method that takes all the characters inside the string frame color and converts them to lowercase. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say enter the width. So they're going to enter that, and because that is an integer, I don't need to do any to lower or to upper. All I need to do is, it's not file width, it's max width. There we go. Console.readLine. Then one more console.writeLine to enter the max height. You want to spell the line correctly. There we go. And I want to put max width because it is the max width and the max height. So max height. All right, equals console.readLine. Forgetting some easy things there, and that's one of the benefits in paper 4. If you forget something, so elementary, you're going to get a red line. It's easy to, when you've been coding all year or the past couple years, it's easy to look at it and know you're missing something. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to iterate through our array of picture objects. So I'm going to do for I equals. Now, I started it at index 1. If you started yours at index 0, you're going to start your for loop at 0. And I'm going to do mine to pick index minus 1. Why am I doing minus 1? Well, in our read data function, right here, after I created the object, I incremented the index to get the next index. So if I make 5 picture objects, I have now set up index 6 to be ready. But if there's nothing there, then there's a null value and my program's going to crash. That's why I have pick index minus 1. So if you're wondering why is that minus 1, that is why. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a if statement here. If frame color equals pictures, because that's the name of my object array, I want to check the index I, and I'm going to get the frame color. When I get the frame color, if that's equal, then that's good. But it also, I need to make sure that the max width they entered is greater than or equal to the width of the picture. So that's pictures I dot get width. So that is making sure that that works. And not only do I need to do that, I need to check the height. Max height is greater than or equal to, and that's going to be pictures I, and I'm going to use that get method that gets us the height. So I'm going to get the height, and there we go. If all of those are true, then what I'm going to do, well, the first thing I'm going to do is zoom out a little bit so you can see all of it. Let's see, 20% is not what I meant to type in. 80% is what I meant to type in. So we have to check the frame color, the width, and the height. And if those requirements are met, then what we want to do is we want to output that to the user. So we're going to do console.writeLine. I'm going to output the description. And my description is going to be pictures I dot, and I'm going to use that get method that gives me the description. Then I'm going to output also what they told me to, which is the width. So I'm going to do width. Now this is going to be from the file. This is going to be from the file. So pictures I dot, and that is get width. And you may be saying, well, this isn't reading the file. Don't forget, we created an array of objects when we read the file. And then console.writeLine, the last thing we need to do is we need to output the height. So I'm going to do height. And the height is going to be, that's pictures I, because I want to access that index of the array. And I'm going to do get height. All right, there we go. And I think that will be all of it. Let's see here. Read data. Yep, we're creating it right here. Oh, you know what we did not do? I need to do that right here after this in try, is file handle dot close the file. I want to close the file. Let's see here. I think we had file handle. Let me do it outside this loop. File handle dot close. Oh yeah, it's just close. All right, there we go. Make sure you don't close the file inside the loop. Make sure you don't close it inside the loop. Close it outside the loop, because if you close it inside the loop, it's going to be closed. You're not going to be able to access it. The last thing we need to do is we need to run this program. So we're going to swing back over. We're going to take a look at the inputs. I want to say it was black 100 100, silver 25 25. Let's swing back over and take a look at it just to double check and make sure we're getting the right inputs. So when we're checking the inputs, it's black in all caps. And yes, we have to put it in all caps, 100 100, and it is silver, all lowercase, 25 25. So we have to input and show those. So we're going to run our program twice and make sure we get the some numbers back. So let's go ahead and run our program. So our first set of test data, the frame color was black. Yes, we have to enter it in all caps because that's what they gave to us. The max width is 100. The height is 100. When we hit enter, hopefully we're going to get some data here. And we do perfect. So we have flowers, that's 45 by 50. We have people, which measures 20 by 20. Landscape, which measures 30 by 45. Another landscape that measures 25 by 37. Another people, which measures 50 by 40. Let's go ahead and run the silver test data. For the next set of test data, we had silver 25 by 25. And we see nothing meets the criteria. The last thing we need to do is I need to show you where that text file goes called pictures.txt, so you're able to access it when you're building your program. So let's go over where to put that text file right now. So on the day of the paper 4 exam, when you get there to smoke the test and show who's boss, what you're going to do is you're going to be given that resource file. Now that resource file should be given to you right before the exam starts. When you build the program and you get to the question that's going to use that text file, that's when you want to put it in. Don't try to do it early. I don't even think you can because you'll be starting the test before it starts, and of course you're not allowed to do that. But once you build your program, you may want to pause for a moment and you want to open it up and paste the resource file where it needs to go. So you're going to open up where the program is. I call mine paper 4 OOP TXT files. You're going to double click that. You're going to go into your bin folder. You're going to go into the debug folder, and it goes right here. You're just going to paste it in just like I just did. Now, if you want to open it up, you're allowed to do that. So let's open it up. We didn't get any output for silver. So let's look for silver. Oh, here's silver right here. We can see it's an abstract 90 by 120, which didn't meet our 25 by 25 criteria, which nothing outputted. I can scroll down some more. Look, oh, here's another silver. It is flowers, but again, it exceeds the criteria we wanted. And then we see one 25 by 35. The 35 doesn't meet our criteria. And unless I skipped over one, I don't see any more silver. But I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to help the channel grow. And we'll see you guys in the next computer science video.